Hello and welcome. My name is Kurt Don, and I want to welcome you to my free introductory class, The Foolproof Method to Picking Your Ideal Woman. If it sounds a little echoey on your end, that will end soon because I'll be putting on my headset and I'll be switching over to slides here really soon. But first, I wanted you to meet me in person. And I'm really excited to be laying out my process in a group setting because normally I do this one-on-one. Also today, you're going to hear some things that you've never heard anyone talk about before. Certainly not in the way that I'm laying them out anyway, because no one's teaching this stuff. So it will be new to you. I've also prepared a class to make sure that your time here today will not be wasted, but it'll be rather informative and useful to you. And to make sure you take home all the value my introductory class has to offer you, I do ask you for, if you could please do me a favor and turn off your cell phones, close out anything on your computer, your email, so there's no distractions. What we're covering today might be the difference between you finding exactly what you want in a relationship, in a woman, which is joy and fulfillment, or running into the same challenges you've run into in the past. So to ensure you don't miss anything, I promise that it's in your best interest to have no distractions. Okay? All right. And let's get underway. I'm going to grab my headset and switch over to my slides. Here we go. Hopefully now you've shut everything out, closed everything down, turned off your phones, and grab a pen and paper real quick because I'm going to show you the foolproof method to picking your ideal woman. The kind of woman who best suits you, who gives you what you want and desire most, so you can have the joy and fulfillment you're looking for. And frankly, give you the confidence that your next relationship will be your last. So we're going to cover that. Sound good? And I can make a virtual certain bet that no one is using this unique process, but everyone could and should. And after I show you the process to picking the right woman, near the end of class, I'm going to share with you what psychologists call the Tetris effect and how to apply it to dating. The Tetris effect, when applied to dating, helps you determine in 3 dates or less how she is likely going to treat you in a relationship over the long haul. So you can stop dead-end dating before it begins. This is a huge time saver and a way to cut things off with a woman who's not good for you before you become emotionally attached to her. This way you can avoid getting hurt by a woman who's not your ideal fit. This is the last part of the process, and you're going to want to know how to do that. So I'm going to cover that right near the end. So let's get rolling. And let's begin with a question I ask every middle-aged single man. And that is, what's the biggest challenge you find in dating at your age? Now, if you're like most divorced or single men I talk to, it's not knowing where to find quality women. Does that sound about right to you? I mean, we're both smart enough to know that they don't hang out in bars, right? And if you've tried online dating for any period of time, then you know all those dating sites are a racket. Each independent study has proven that none of these dating sites has the algorithm to match you with your ideal woman. Yet in the face of these published facts, they all have the balls to still claim that they have the magic compatibility test to finding you love. It's unbelievable. And dating as a middle-aged man is completely different than when we were young, with little to lose and lots of single women to date in our college years. Today we manage way more than we did in our 20s. We have full-time careers or a business that's often stressful or challenging. And we have more responsibilities. We may have kids from a previous marriage. And then on top of that, we want to make sure we find a woman who's a great fit for us. And we certainly don't want to cut any corners and risk finding a bad match. And if you've been divorced before, then you know better than anyone else that you don't want to cut any corners and risk repeating that painful process again. Not only is it emotionally devastating, it's expensive. And even if you decide you never want to marry again, a breakup can still be emotionally overwhelming and can still be expensive if you're living together and you're sharing resources. And at our age, we can't afford to keep taking that kind of hit emotionally or financially, not if our goal is to grow old with someone and retire someday at a reasonable age, or at least know that it's an option for us if we do decide we want to retire. And with the average U.S. male dying at the age of 75, most of us cannot afford to get the next match wrong. And if you're like most middle-aged men I talk to, this time you want to get it right. You don't want to be dating endlessly, and you certainly don't want to be in and out of relationships for the rest of your life. You just want to find and pick a partner that brings you lasting joy and fulfillment. You want a woman to share the rest of your life with, to grow old with. You want greater certainty that your next relationship will be your last. And this class is designed to show you how to do just that. And I've saved the best part for last, as I mentioned a little bit earlier. So next, what I want to do is give you some context. You need to know my backstory. How did I discover this process to picking your ideal match, and how's it led me to you? So here's a little bit about myself, a little bit about my background. When I was 14 years old, I had an epiphany that changed my life. Do you remember the Merv Griffin show? If you're in your late 40s or early 50s, you may. It was a talk show, just like the Tonight Show or Oprah, where Merv would interview these guests, like John Wayne or presidents like Ronald Reagan and Jimmy Carter. And in his early years, he interviewed Martin Luther King Jr. and Rosa Parks. So pretty significant stuff. And that was a little bit before I was born. Anyway, I used to watch this show late afternoons, right after school, and I would pretend I was famous, which is kind of funny when I think about it. But I would pretend, Merv would be interviewing me, and he'd be asking me these philosophical questions about life. This one day, Merv asked me some question about how I lived my life. And this is what hit me in that moment, and I'll never forget it. I said, when I'm on my deathbed, looking back over my life, I will only have one question to answer. Was my life a life worth living? And will my answer be, it was a well-lived life? Or will I feel some shame, like I've let myself down, and then feel loss and regret shortly before I die? That thought haunted me, and I dwelled on that question for days, asking myself, what do I want to say about my life at the end? What's important to me? I came up with several answers, but the two that are relevant for this class was for me to have a different relationship with my future wife than my parents have with each other. My parents argued a lot and deeply hurt each other with their words. Or they'd hurt each other by giving the other the silent treatment. They would simply ignore the other person and behave like they didn't matter to them. It was horrible. I wanted to feel deeply connected to my wife. I wanted to find a woman that I could discuss conflicts with without the heat and anger I felt from my folks. Today, as an adult, I understand that getting upset and bumping heads from time to time is normal. But there's a clear line between respectful, constructive conversations and fighting unfairly with the intent to hurt the other. I didn't have the words at 14, but what I was saying is that I wanted my wife and I to be partners, to be on the same team when it came to handling conflicts. In football, when your team member fumbles the ball, what do? You recover it. You don't stop and let the opposing team jump on the ball and then point your finger at your teammate who dropped it and say, hey, it's your fault, right? You have each other's back. That's what I wanted. I wanted to find healthy ways to resolve conflicts with my wife because we are on the same team. I decided early on that I needed to find a woman who wanted to be in a relationship that has each other's back. I wanted to experience joy and fulfillment in our relationship, and I wanted that to be a fairly consistent experience, the norm. I wanted a lover and a best friend. I wanted to feel deeply connected and known. And I wanted to joke around, be playful, and have fun with her. Otherwise, what's the point? Now, the other answer I came up with when I was 14 is that I wanted to live a life that helped others in some way. As I lie on my deathbed, I wanted to look back over my life knowing I had contributed in some way that was positive, meaningful, and significant to other people. And I'll say more about that in a few minutes. But the question, is my life a life worth living, has been a moral compass I've used over the years to guide many of my decisions. And I wish I could say it has guided all my decisions, but it hasn't. I do have some regrets. However, I have to say that the biggest benefit to me using the question, is my life a life worth living, as a moral compass, is that it's kept me grounded and focused most of my life. Until now. Which leads me back to you and this class. A friend of mine created a process that led me to find the right woman, the woman of my dreams. And my friend is a woman. She's a business owner. She came up with this process because she had a problem. She was 39 years old at the time and wanted to be married and have 2 children. She was single, had no man in sight, and her window of opportunity to have children was running out. So as you can imagine, she was feeling anxious and worried that her time to get pregnant was slipping away. But she had 2 things going for her. One, she was a successful, savvy business owner whose skill set is solving complex problems. And the second thing she had going for her was that she was taking a high-level intensive class at that time that solves business problems and turbocharges your business in 3 months or less. And just one of the things that they taught in this class to owners is how to take any business challenge you have and break it down to get to the core of that problem using a series of exercises that she had never seen before, I had certainly never seen before. You see, more often than not, the core issue or issues in a business turn out to be something radically different than what people are certain the core issue is before applying these exercises. The exercises shines a light on the real problem, and once the core issue is identified, or the core of that issue is identified in their business, then they teach you how to reverse engineer everything to ensure you get the result you want while permanently eliminating that problem. So my friend is sitting there taking this class and listening to all this, and all she can think about is her relationship conundrum. And as they're laying it out and going through the process, she begins to wonder if she could apply these same potent exercises to a relationship problem, as if she's the business, to identify what makes her tick at her core, the good stuff, and then root out and identify the real reason she's failed in all of her past relationships. And more importantly, figure out what's truly required for her to have joy and fulfillment in a relationship with a man long term, and then reverse engineer it to find that ideal man. So, shortly after she attends these series of classes, my friend calls me up. She's all pumped. She says, "Let's meet for coffee. I have some incredible news." We meet, and she lays out her plan, much in the way I just described to you. And if you're like me, your mind is spinning about now, trying to wrap your brain around the whole thing, because at the time it was just concepts to me. And then she ends with, "I think I can find him in 3 months." So as you can imagine, I'm a little skeptical, to say the least. And I don't want to bust her bubble or be cynical or anything. But at this point, I'm not so sure I even understand what she said. So I tell her to figure it out, put it all together, but don't get your hopes up too high. And let's see what happens. I'm thinking baby steps. So I don't hear from her for several weeks, so I give her a call, say, "Hey, let's meet for breakfast." We do. Figure she's come down from Cloud 9 by now, and she's back on Earth, and she may need a little pick-me-up from her friend. So I ask her, "How's this going?" And she tells me she's figured everything out. She's going on dates daily. She's completely on fire, motivated as hell, the exact opposite of what I expected. And again, I'm happy for her because she's got the right attitude. But I still can't help think to myself that it's a little too unrealistic that you can apply business concept to dating and expecting it to work. And even more unrealistic, expecting to find him in 3 months seems way too ambitious to me. Then many more weeks pass and I get the call, and I'll never forget it. Now keep in mind that our first talk about her finding a man in 3 months happened in mid-March 2002. On June 8th, 3 months later, I get the call from her. And I'll never forget it because I was visiting Manhattan for the very first time. And it was lunch, and I was standing there in line to get food from a street vendor in Central Park. I stepped out of line when she said, "I found him." I was a little shocked and in disbelief, but mostly I was in disbelief. I asked her if she was sure. Her confidence soared. There was no question in her mind and in her tone of voice when she spoke about him. In fact, her certainty about him actually made me more uncertain. I didn't say anything negative at the time, but I was convinced that she was not seeing things clearly. The more she talked, the more I felt she was delusional. And going way too fast. She told me how they met and where they met and how after 5 dates they decided to get married, made plans, set the date for 60 days later. Yep, that's 60 days. And that they would be getting pregnant immediately, start working on that immediately. So she's talking like they've been dating for 2 years now, like it's time to take the next step. So you can understand my concern, right? And I kept asking myself the same question over and over again. Are you sure? Are you sure he's the right guy? Are you sure you're not moving too fast? Are you sure this isn't about you wanting to have babies more than a great man? Are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure? And her confidence never wavered. Fast forward, a few days before the wedding, they had a pre-wedding party for all their friends. This would be the first time I'd meet them. Now, between my talk with her in Central Park on June 8th and the pre-wedding party, I had many conversations with her. And the more I talked to her and she explained the process in greater detail, I found that she made more sense. The more I could see from her viewpoint, the more that my confidence began to grow. I could see how she wasn't crazy or delusional. She had applied common sense exercises, proven exercises, used in business to create a clear path to selecting the right partner with precision accuracy. But it wasn't until I had actually seen them together at the pre-wedding party and how they interacted with each other that made me believe that she had found the right guy. Until this point, all I felt is that this was more like an intellectual exercise, too calculated, not a heart connection exercise to finding love. But seeing her and seeing them and the way they looked at each other, it was clear that there was an emotional connection. There was chemistry between them. What impressed me most is that they engaged like they knew each other for years. They finished each other's sentences, and I marveled at how in sync they were when they spoke to one another. And it wasn't just me witnessing this. Many of my friends, our friends, made the same comments to me. They were too worried for her until they spent time with them, saw how they seemed to fit together, and the whole crowd was taken back when they spoke at the mic about one another. It was not like the relationship you normally expected or see every day. And as a single guy, it was the kind of relationship I wanted. And luckily, she had documented the whole process because 14 months after her call to me in Central Park, I was ready to find my ideal partner. And as I thought about what I needed to do to find a great woman for me, I thought, I got to get my hands on my friend's process maps. To me, it seemed like a treasure map. And even though I didn't have the concrete evidence it would work for me at this point, I thought it certainly won't hurt to give it a shot. I have nothing to lose, so I gave her a call. One of my first questions to her was, of course, how are you and your husband doing? And frankly, there still was a tiny piece of me wondering, if after all the dust had settled nearly a year and a half later from the time they first met, if they'd still feel they were an ideal fit for one another. So I asked how they were doing, and with with the schoolgirl in love tone in her voice, she told me that they were still deeply in love, that they were closer than ever, and that she told me that they had two adorable twin daughters, Chloe and Hannah. So she got her two kids. We caught up, and then I asked her for her process. She sent me everything I needed. She walked me through each step. She told me the reason behind each step, and she was available by phone for me whenever I had a question. In August of 2003, at this time, is when I started, and I didn't skip a step. I tend to be a little obsessive compulsive. I never want to cut corners and risk losing out on getting my intended result, especially now that it was about finding a woman that best suited me. So at this point, the only skepticism that was left for me is, could it work for me, or was she just lucky? But fast forward 3 months later, following my friend's process to a T, I found Kirsty in November. And like my friend, I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that Kirsty was an ideal fit for me. I had certainty that she was a perfect fit for me, and my certainty was unshakable. Now, I wasn't in the same rush to marry as my friend was, so Kirsty and I married 2.5 years later. So great for me and great for my friend, but what does this have to do with you? Well, here's the thing I want you to know. This is not a one-off process. After I married Kirsty, and even before, people would often comment on how compatible we were and what a great relationship we had. And often people in our social circle were single, and so they would ask us how we met. And when we first started talking about it, inevitably the process would come up, and people would start asking, well, would you show me how to do it? And to this day, every person I have shown this process to who has followed has had the exact same result. In fact, I've had 2 people I've taught who have found their perfect match in 60 days. And for over a decade now, I've taken on private clients from time to teach my process. And between the original insights and exercises from my friend's high-level intensive class and her tweaking them to fit dating, and then me fine-tuning them over the past 10-plus years, the process is even more efficient and more effective than when I first used them to find Kirsty back in 2003. So here's the inside scoop. I've had people tell me that I've got to share this process with others on a bigger scale for years now, that I'm hiding a secret that others need to know about. And I have had good intentions on sharing it on a bigger scale. And it wasn't until I discovered that I'm now in the middle of my midlife crisis that I realized I needed to change my life. Now, over the years, I've owned several successful businesses, but I've always chased the money. Which business I chose to start has nearly always been decided based on what will make me the most money. But in the thick of my midlife crisis, I've realized that's not enough. and it's left me feeling lost and ungrounded. And it's gotten me to think again about my 14-year-old insight, that I need to feel like I'm contributing to others in a personal and meaningful way, just as I mentioned earlier. So this is my grand experiment. By focusing on helping you and other men, can I reground myself, regain my passion for life, and make a difference in a way that is meaningful for both of us? So that's why I'm here. And thank you for investing your time with me today and trusting me to support you in your journey to find the woman of your dreams. So next, I'm going to lay out my process, what you need to know and what to do to find and pick your ideal match quickly. Here we go. Imagine this scenario. What if every woman you came in contact with, you could determine almost instantly if she was a potential fit for you? And you had absolute certainty if she was not a fit for you, all in just minutes. And what if you never had to compromise on what you were looking for in a relationship? What if there was a way to know in advance that you'd be loved, needed, and wanted for who you are? And what if you could instantly predict which woman would respect you, admire you, and appreciate you? Sound like a stretch? I used to think so too, until it happened to me. November 15th, 2003, I met the woman of my dreams in San Francisco on a business trip. I lived in Arizona, and she lived in Oregon. In time, I'd meet 4-year-old Bryn and 9-year-old Casey, who would become my amazing stepkids. Today, over a decade later, my kids are older, and my life with my wife has been everything I've ever wanted. Now, I'd be lying if I told you that we live some fairy tale life where we never bump heads or have our share of disagreements from time to time. But outside of those rare exceptions, not a day goes by without me feeling loved, needed, or wanted. I feel respected, often admired, and always appreciated. So here's the process. Part 1. Knowing the right way to assess what you really want in a woman. First, you need clarity. Clarity is the key to the kingdom. Having absolute clarity about what you want, need, and desire, and then finding a woman whose brain is innately wired to deliver those to you effortlessly as breathing air is what's required as a foundation for lasting joy, peace, and fulfillment. I want to repeat that last part because it's one of the most important slides you're going to see here today. Having absolute clarity about what you want, need, and desire, and then finding a woman whose brain is innately wired to deliver those to you effortlessly as breathing air is what's required as a foundation for lasting joy, peace, and fulfillment. If you have kids, or know parents with 2 or more kids, then you know that their behavior can be radically different. One child might be a saint and the other a hellion. One child might be shy and the other extrovert. Both children born from the same parents. Even twins' brains can be wired radically different. Then kids grow up with added influences. Their parents instill their values. Their friends influence their beliefs. Movies, TV shows, music, teachers all play a role in their development, their wiring. We've all gone through this ourselves, and we've all been wired to behave a certain way inside of our romantic relationships. Some good, some bad. Some we can change behaviorally. Others are hardwired at our core and cannot change. The key for you is to first have absolute clarity about what you want, need, and desire at your core, and then search and find a woman who's already wired at her core to respond in a relationship with you that naturally and effortlessly meets those wants, needs, and desires of yours. That's it. She's already hardwired to meet that for you. And because it's already hardwired in her, at her core, you get those wants, needs, and desires from her for life. So it never disappears after the honeymoon stage of your relationship is over, or when the chemistry begins to fade, because it's already built into her. And that is what's required for you to have a foundation of lasting joy, peace, and fulfillment. Let me give you an example. There's a book called The 5 Love Languages by Dr. Chapman. It's been out there for a long time. Maybe you've heard of it. And in it, he says there are 5 love languages we all possess. The 5 are words of affirmation, quality time, gifts, acts of service, and physical touch. However, we tend to relate to one of them stronger than the rest. Dr. Chapman's book is written for those already in a relationship and struggling. So he has you identify your love language and your spouse's, and then encourages you to speak their language to improve your relationship. If they like gifts, you give them gifts. If you like physical touch, you ask her to give you more physical touch. And he freely admits that speaking your spouse's love language, and I quote, probably won't feel natural to you. It won't be comfortable, but it's what you do for someone you love to connect with him or her. End of quote. Now, I see nothing wrong with those who are already married trying to reconnect, and I agree that nurturing a relationship is very important. However, and to the point of this example, wouldn't you rather just find a woman who has your identical love language to begin with? Someone who is already hardwired to express that language instinctively? And because you share the same love language, it's as equally innate for you to express that same language back. So you're both already on the same page from the beginning. Does that make sense? Can you see how much better that would be for you and her? How that would be more natural, more organic versus being mechanical? So I use that as an example to point out the value of intentionally seeking a woman whose mind is already wired from her life experiences to give you what you want, need, and desire in a relationship. I say, be proactive while you're single. Get absolute clarity about those wants, needs, and desires first, which organically includes matching your love language. That way you're not stuck in a relationship doing patchwork to keep it alive. And by the way, matching one's love language is simply one piece of the bigger puzzle. Dr. Chapman hangs his hat on the 5 love language saying it's the key to long-lasting marriage. If this is true, then what you'll learn from me here in class, I believe you'll agree, far exceeds his vision of what's possible. And I'm going to show you how to do that today. Now, before we move on, a quick qualification. The purpose of this class is to show you everything you need to find the right woman. However, you can still muck it up and spoil a great thing by becoming complacent in your relationship. So even though I show you the tools to find the right woman, you both will need to nurture the relationship to maintain it, much in the same way you'd oil a chain on a bike so the chain won't fly off. By nurturing the relationship, has her continue to give you what you require naturally and effortlessly over time. And it works the same way for you. If you feel loved and have no ill feelings towards a woman you love, you will continue to love her effortlessly as well, right? Right. And one last but very important clarification before we move on. That initial rush of chemistry you feel in the beginning of a relationship, the obsessive thinking of her, the craving for her, does subside. Even in the best of relationships, it's been found that human beings cannot sustain that level of passion for another over time. It's simply impossible. Instead, it's replaced with a calm, deep connection as you grow together over time. And in my opinion, it's much richer. It's mature love. Make sense? All right, back to clarity. Clarity is the one thing we men think we already have. When asked, we usually describe physical characteristics we want from a woman first. A redhead or a blonde or brunette with perfect boobs, great legs, and an ass to die for, right? We all want that. And certainly physical characteristics play a significant part. We don't want to rule that out, but we usually have to think hard to put into words all the qualities and traits we want in a woman beyond the physical. It's never right there on the tip of our tongue. At best, we find 1 or 2. We can never rattle off all of the interpersonal qualities and traits in just seconds, in the same way that we can rattle off all the physical characteristics we want in a woman. When I ask men to elaborate on the qualities and traits that are important to them in a woman, often they eventually say to me, "I know it when I see it." But if that was true, if it was true that they knew it when they've seen it in the past, why have all the relationships failed? What's missing? What doesn't have them in that relationship now? Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to bust anyone's balls here. But here's the point, and why I bring it up. Until you distinguish those exact, specific qualities and traits that made those relationships great from those qualities that didn't work in past relationships, and have those great qualities and traits burned deep into your mind, you'll continue to come up short in your future relationships. That's the work that must be done. You need to identify those specific qualities and traits required for your perfect match and use the method I use to burn them deep into your brain so you can get exactly what you want, need, and deserve for life. And here's the great news. When you get exactly what you want, women get the exact man they want. Why? Because you will have identified and you will have attracted a woman who shares your core wants, needs, and desires. And when she shares those same core qualities in all areas of your life, you have fewer things to argue over, you have fewer disagreements, you reduce or even disappear the drama. And what's left? Love, understanding, relatedness, closeness, affinity, joy, admiration, appreciation, recognition, respect, peace, compassion, acceptance, honesty, honor, loyalty, support, companionship, affection, desire, and sex. All the things men and women want in a relationship. Am I right? So having absolute clarity about what you want, need, and desire is the first step and is essential to finding the right woman. Clarity is the key to the kingdom. And before we go on, I want to say one quick thing about qualities and traits. I'm not suggesting that you're going to find a woman who's your identical clone in every way in life. And I'm not saying you will find a Stepford wife or a June Cleaver wife. We're not finding our clones. And we're not looking for some magical, unrealistic idea of perfection. We're finding what clicks for us, what works for us, what brings us joy, peace in a relationship, and fulfillment. Okay? All right, let's move on. Part 2. Chemistry plus blank, blank, blank equals a solid foundation for lasting love. Let's answer this important puzzle. According to Dr. Helen Fisher, an anthropologist and human behavior researcher for over 30 years, and is one of the most renowned on the topic of love and chemistry, she concludes that romantic love is one of 3 basic brain systems that evolved for reproduction. And each evolved for a reason. For the first, the sex drive, evolved to get you out there looking for partners. The second, romantic love, this evolved to enable us to focus our energy on just one person at a time. This is the experience you have when you can't get a new woman out of your mind. You experience euphoria, energy, often sleeplessness. This is the period of high passion in the early stages of new love. The third is attachment. This is the feeling of security you have with a long-term partner. This evolved to help you stay together just long enough to raise the kids in the most trying years, which are the first 3 to 4 years of a child's life. Now, after that, the chemistry fades. Both men and women begin to look for another suitor. And from an anthropologist's viewpoint, this development made sense before modern society because there were so few of us humans in those early years. So we had to procreate a lot to keep the human race alive. Beyond that, Dr. Fisher's years of research and surveying of long-term couples has found that the key to lasting love between two people boils down to the compatibility between them and the well-meshing of their personalities. She says this will continue to keep both partners together and happy during the dry spells, when feelings of romance are low. In other words, and in my experience, if two people are already hardwired to naturally and effortlessly deliver their partner's wants, needs, and desires ongoing, like breathing air, they are compatible. And this kind of compatibility and natural meshing of their personalities is the foundation to lasting love. And this is exactly my experience with Kirsty. And I believe my process takes compatibility to a new level, because Kirsty and I have not experienced dry spells since we met in 2003. I believe my process establishes a solid foundation to greatly reduce and potentially eliminate dry spells. And I'll show you what I mean here in a bit. But first, here's the scoop on chemistry. Chemistry plays a big role in your attraction and in your initial bonding with a woman. It turbocharges any new relationship. You want chemistry between you and a woman, but it has a shelf life of 4 years at best. And if your entire relationship is built on chemistry, it will die within those first 4 years. Then you can choose to either leave the relationship, or you can buy books like The 5 Love Languages to resuscitate and duct tape the relationship to keep it alive for the rest of your life. Now, I know this sounds crass, but chemistry is simply one piece. It's the initial glue to a relationship. But this biological glue naturally wears thin over time, and you must have all the other key pieces in place to succeed in a deep, long-lasting love. Think of it this way. Let's put the role of chemistry and age in perspective, and let's put them in a car. When we are teenagers, starting at 15 or 16, we discover the magic of chemistry with a girl. And in the front seat of the car, who's driving? Your chemistry or your vast years of life experience? Right. Chemistry is in the driver's seat. And our tiny life experiences is like an infant in the back seat going for a joyride. It's during these years, these teen years, when our prefrontal cortex has not yet developed. So our critical thinking skills, our decision-making skills, our impulse control is still 10 years away from being completed. And we do the best we can making relationship decisions given our lack of executive function skills and lack of life experience. During our 20s, our life experience begins to grow, but chemistry still takes lead in most of our decision making. During our 30s, after our prefrontal cortex has fully developed, we have some solid life experience under our belt. We join chemistry sitting in the front seat as its co-pilot. Our experience now plays a better role in making relationship decisions. However, this is where experience usually stays, in the front seat as a co-pilot, which means we allow our chemistry to continue to drive, continue to take lead. We follow our chemistry into relationships and check in with life experience along the way to see if there are any red flags from past relationships telling us if we need to bail. If there are no immediate red flags, we continue to date. Eventually, we're intimate and we begin to bond with a woman. We enter in a relationship or marriage and write it out and hope for the best. Then over time we discover problems. We deal with them as best we can. But in the end, the relationship ends. And rarely do two people leave a relationship without at least one of them feeling deeply hurt, a tremendous amount of pain over the other. If it's been a long-term relationship, it's even harder to reclaim your life. You eventually come around, get back on the horse, or in our analogy, get back in the car on the passenger side and let chemistry take you for another ride. And the cycle continues, unless you're one of the lucky ones who accidentally stumbles into a relationship that you can make work. Or there's another way, a predictable and certain way to finding the right woman. In fact, there are 5 different ways we have developed to protect yourself from being carried away by raw chemistry. I'm going to teach one of those 5 now. It's called switching seats, and here it is. As we already know, the longer we live on this planet, the more life experience we gain. And we know those life experiences with a mature brain, now over 40, we can now use those experiences as a vantage point. So what I did, and what my friend did, and what I've shown other clients of mine to do, is to switch seats. Remove chemistry from the driver's seat and replace it with life experience. You now let your life experience drive the car, and you place your chemistry beside you as your co-pilot. Chemistry's job is to let you know if you feel chemistry for a woman as your life experience is on a date. Now this is a big improvement, and it's a critical trajectory for a better shot at lasting love, but it's not nearly enough. You need to take it further, and this next part is what separates me, or more accurately, the process, from therapists, psychologists, sociologists, anthropologists, scientists, those $20,000 matchmaking services, and those online dating sites with their fancy proven to not work matchmaking tests. But it goes beyond placing your life experience in the driver's seat if you want precise predictability in selecting the right woman. You must take it further and actually harness your life experience. You need to know exactly which qualities you require in a woman as a foundation for joy and fulfillment long term. And access to this is through harnessing your life experience. You need to know which qualities to keep and which to toss aside. And if you don't get this part right, you can blow it. And you'll be no further along than you are right now. It's through harnessing your life experience is where you gain absolute clarity and certainty of those qualities you require in a woman for lasting love. And I'm going to show you how to begin that process right now. But first, to answer our puzzle from earlier, chemistry plus life experience harnessed equals a solid foundation for lasting love. Let's roll on to part 3. Selecting what you ultimately require in an ideal woman as your foundation for lasting love. So how do we do this? There are a total of 9 different exercises that, when applied to dating, give you absolute clarity and certainty in finding those exact qualities you require for lasting love. Today I'm going to teach you that first critical step. We distinguish our qualities and traits by first identifying and separating our baseline traits from our required needs and from our bonus wants. Separating these qualities out gives us the clarity we need, so we can know what to focus on and what to set aside. And on a side note, there are over 200 positive qualities we men and women can possess. Too many to cover here in our time today. So let me start with baseline traits. Baseline traits are those common traits you find in many people. Chances are most, if not all, of your friends hold these baseline traits, or you would not likely call them your friends, or at least not your close friends. For me, honesty, loyalty, and trustworthiness are baseline traits all of my friends have, or they wouldn't be my friends. Being loved by my friends is a baseline trait. These are a few examples of baseline traits. There are more, but you get the idea. And these are equally required in any love relationship. They are required with my wife. So baseline traits are expected and a given in any important relationship. Next, required needs. Required needs are a set of qualities you require from a woman that separate her from most other women on the planet. They make up your ideal partner. Finding a woman who holds all of those individual qualities in a particular set makes her unique from other women. And each of those qualities give you joy, the experience of peace, and the experience of fulfillment. Each of those qualities bring out your best self and feed your soul. Like baseline traits, required needs are equally as important. Required needs are felt so strongly by you that you would feel that there was a hole in your life if she was even missing one of them. For example, say one of your most intimate ways you feel emotionally connected with a woman is through having sex. And let's say you, like most men, if not all men, hold sex as a required need. Now imagine from today forward never having sex again. Imagine laying on your deathbed 30 years, 40 years, 50 years from now, looking back and thinking, I stopped having sex decades ago. And the reason for that is because you picked a woman who doesn't have sex with men no matter how deeply connected she is with them. So if you knew the next woman you picked for life would never have sex with you from the day you met forward till the day you die, how does that sit with you? Is that cool? No biggie? Or do you feel a strong internal reaction against the notion of never having sex again? Which is it? Can you live without it? If you're like me, you're having a visceral negative reaction towards the thought of never having sex again. If you're like me, sex is required. It's a required need for you, and you wouldn't enter into a relationship without it. Make sense? That's a required need. If you're having a visceral negative reaction towards the thought of never having sex in your life again, that's the experience of it. If you can live without sex for the rest of your life, then sex is likely to fall into one of your bonus wants. From my example, you can extrapolate a bonus want. A good example of a bonus want in my life was with Cindy, a woman I fell head over heels in love with when I was in my late 20s. We both have a great sense of humor. And it's funny, me just saying that, I realize how humorless I've been in this class with you, given, I think, the seriousness and the nature of the topic. But anyway, I digress. We actually do, believe it or not, have a great sense of humor. And we were great at bantering back and forth with one another. We were incredibly entertaining. And I feel a little uncomfortable boasting about this, but my friends told me that hanging out with us was like getting free front row tickets to an improv comedy show. They loved us together. We were a perfect match in my friends' eyes and in my eyes. I had no idea how incredible a relationship could be sharing this special talent. I saw us growing old together, making each other laugh. I saw people envying us for the joy that we brought into each other's lives. I felt special. I felt we were special. Then we broke up. For years I couldn't understand why she left me when things were so perfect together. And so it became my new aim. It was on my radar that the next true love would be someone who could banter with me in the same way. So as I went out on dates with women, if they couldn't banter with me, they never made the cut. And those women I could banter with always seemed to have some kind of self-esteem issue. Now, to be fair, I was attracting women with a low self-esteem because I had a low self-esteem at the time, too. That was my blind spot. And over the years, I found a way to work through this limiting view of myself. A full decade later, during the process I'm taking you through, I discovered, to my surprise, that having a woman who I could banter with fell from a required need into a bonus want. A bonus want is something we'd love to have in a relationship, but is not required for us to feel happy and fulfilled in a relationship. And a required need is a quality felt so strong by you that you'd feel there's a hole in your life without it. You'd feel a loss of joy and fulfillment in your relationship. Because I did not have a way to distinguish a bonus want versus a required need in my late 20s, it had me waste 10 years of my life brushing off great women because I was focused on those who could banter with me. Or when I gave in and did date a woman, I would never commit my life to her because she could not banter with me. Have you ever dated a woman you loved but could not commit your life to her? Some will say it's because you have commitment issues. That's what they told me, and I honestly questioned myself. I wondered if something was wrong with me. Have you ever felt that way? If so, it sucks. And unfortunately, we don't learn this stuff in school. We don't learn life skills about how to choose a right partner. And we have a high divorce rate in this country, in part as a result. So without this specialized knowledge about how to choose the right partner, what does a normal relationship look like when we don't know which qualities fall into our required needs or bonus wants? Basically something like this. You first meet a woman and you feel some chemistry between the two of you. You go on dates, and as you find you both have things in common, the chemistry grows. Unknowingly, she meets some of your required needs, and she meets some of your bonus wants. As you both experience these needs and wants being met early on, you decide at some point to enter into a relationship. Then at some point you run into some challenges, things break down, and eventually things fall apart and you two break up. So what happened? Well, a number of things could have happened to lead to your relationship's ultimate demise. But looking back over my failed relationships, one of the common denominators I found is that I treated my bonus wants with the same importance as my required needs. Why? Because I didn't know. It all seemed the same to me. It would be another decade before someone distinguished bonus wants from required needs. Before, I had a very good idea of what I liked and wanted in a woman. And when a woman showed up, and most or all those qualities were there, and there was chemistry, it made sense to date her and see what happened. I now call this haphazard dating. And it's what we do because no one else teaches us that there are clear distinctions between required needs and bonus wants. You see, when you only have some of your required needs being met and other required needs are not being met, you eventually feel an empty hole in your life, and there's not enough bonus wants to fill that hole. So without having absolute clarity about each of our required needs and bonus wants and placing them in the proper place, all of our relationships are haphazard and we risk everything on our best guess. We have kids together, we buy houses and cars together, we plan our future together, we save for our retirement together. Our finances and fate are tied together, all based on our best guess. And when the relationship breaks down, we have 4 choices. We can try to patch them up by getting help to mechanically meet one another's required needs, or we can constantly argue and grow further and further apart, or we can withdraw and go numb, or we can leave the relationship. And I believe women often figure it out that our relationship is doomed before we men do. And as a result, 80% of women end their relationship with men. That's a real number, by the way. 80% of all breakups are by women. And because they sometimes figure it out first, we're often left standing there stunned, wondering what we did wrong. How the hell can we fix it? And in some cases, we never saw it coming. Not too comfortable, is it? But now you know. And because you know, you can now do something about it. You can now do the work to identify and separate your baseline traits from your required needs and from your bonus wants, so you can gain the clarity to require and seek out a woman who fulfills what you really want and what really works for both of you. And whatever bonus wants she brings along is just that, a bonus. And when you find a woman who shares the same core qualities in all areas of your life, you have fewer things to argue over, you have fewer disagreements, and you can reduce and even eliminate the drama. It's really hard to argue with someone you agree with. It's hard to get bent out of shape when you see eye to eye on just about everything. And as a result, you have peace between the two of you, peace in your home. Having your required needs met, you experience more joy and satisfaction in your life with her. And you have done the work to build a solid foundation so you both can grow closer together and experience a deep, meaningful, and rich fulfillment with one another. Now, before we go any further, I do want to qualify what I just said. I'm not saying that by distinguishing your required needs from your bonus wants and you find the woman who matches those required needs perfectly, that is some magic bullet. From my experience, and I have no data to back this up, but from my personal experience and from my observations of others, I'd say finding a woman who shares your required needs is roughly 75% of the deal. The remaining 25% is you nurturing your relationship so that you both want to give each other what you inherently already are wired to do. So I want to point that out so you're not left thinking that you'll have a happily ever after ending if you only get this one part right. However, to me, it's the most important part. I see it playing the biggest role in the life and death of relationships. And if you get this part right, it's far easier to tackle challenges when they do arise. Most problems don't threaten your core value or the core of your relationship because your core values are already in alignment. So your disagreements fall more into a surface level realm. So they're easier to talk through, they're easier to solve. And I think the next story demonstrates the importance of getting your required needs right. Years ago, a buddy of mine, we both were talking about women and relationships, and he told a story that related to his car. He told me that his first car was a 73 Pinto. As a 16-year-old, what he wanted was a sports car. No surprise there, right? He said the paint on his Pinto was faded, the rims were ugly, the tires looked wimpy, and the stereo system sucked. And over his first working summer, he earned enough money to afford to give his car a professional paint job, beautiful rims, sporty tires, and a kick-ass stereo system. But he said he couldn't do it. He couldn't stomach spending all this money on a Pinto that he really didn't want. He told me no matter how much money I spent prettying up this Pinto, at the end of the day, it's still a damn Pinto. It's not the sports car. It's not what I really want. The takeaway point he was making is that we can do marriage counseling, personal therapy, or turn ourselves into a pretzel and compromise ourselves until we are a shell of a man to help save our relationship. But at the end of the day, if we don't have the right woman, it's not what we really want, and you're not really what she wants. So finding and attracting the right woman is finding a woman who shares your required needs and shares the same chemistry for one another. She's the sexy sports car with all the required needs to make it last over time. Did you like how I tied those two thoughts together? Okay, back on point. Again, as I mentioned in part 2, therapists, scientists, dating coaches, online matchmaking tests, or those $20,000 dating services never teach you how to harness your life experience. The closest they get to harnessing your life experience is to tell you to figure out your non-negotiables and then leave it at that. They have you sit down one evening, rattle off the most, obvious bad crap you won't stand for in a relationship, and call it good. Essentially, that exercise is a lousy attempt at distinguishing your baseline traits, and worse, it frames everything from the negative. You never get to the gold. You never get to separating your required needs from your bonus wants and from your baseline traits. And the worst of them hang their hat on having you match your interests by taking electronic personality tests that all only scratch the surface. You never get to the core of what really makes you tick in a relationship, what qualities women possess that bring out your best self, that feed your soul. They don't have the series of 9 unique exercises that are proven to separate your baseline traits from your required needs and from your bonus wants with precision accuracy. So you can harness your life experience and create a clear path to selecting the right life partner. Nor do they have the 5 different ways to protect yourself from being carried away by raw chemistry. And as a result, the dating advice you do get from others still puts you in a haphazard relationship. Their dating advice resembles more of that of a prettied up Pinto. Make sense? Cool, because now we get to my favorite part, the part I promised I would cover from the beginning. This is part 4, and it's called the Tetris effect. Now, as I just mentioned, others don't teach separating your required needs from your bonus wants, so you can never take advantage. None of them can take advantage of the Tetris effect. This next phase will simply be an intellectual exercise today, but transformational for you when fully completed. This is where you burn your required needs deep into your mind. Again, having your required needs accurately identified is required first before you can use this exercise to attract the right woman. And this exercise is even more important. This exercise pulls everything together. Remember how I started this class? Imagine this scenario. What if every woman you came in contact with, you could determine almost instantly if she was a potential fit, and you had absolute certainty if she was not a fit, just in minutes? What if you never had to compromise on what you're looking for in a relationship? What if there was a way to know in advance that you'd be loved, needed, and wanted for who you are? And what if you could instantly predict which woman would respect, admire, and appreciate you? This is where it all happens. I believe the exercise I'm about to show you are what psychologists call the Tetris effect. Harvard professor Sean Aker calls the Tetris effect as something that happens when you train the brain to have a specific reaction to the environment that's around you. It was named after the Tetris video game because, in layman's terms, it was discovered that people who played the Tetris game for hours found themselves thinking about different shapes in the real world and how they can fit together, just like you do in the game. It was determined that the Tetris game players would mentally rearrange items on the supermarket shelf so they all lined up perfectly, or mentally rearrange the bricks on a wall or buildings on a street. And here's the key point you need to know. They were doing all of this without trying. Wherever they went, their subconscious brains were always scanning, looking for patterns, and then informing the conscious brain on how to line things up perfectly with no effort, without them ever trying. And this is exactly what happened to me when I enabled the Tetris effect for dating. As I went on dates for those 3 months in 2003, my subconscious brain would scan looking for those core qualities in our conversations and in her body language. I simply held a conversation about anything and let my subconscious produce the result. And because our subconscious brains are so powerful, it usually produced a no in a matter of minutes, and a maybe over a little more stretch of time, and a maybe qualified for a second date. And in 3 dates or less, I knew for sure if she wasn't a fit. My brain was so dialed in, so clear about my required needs, it made it easy for my subconscious to produce a fast no, without risk of me compromising any core requirements. It prevented me from risking and falling for a woman who did not possess my required needs. There are 3 exercises to fully engage and elicit the Tetris effect, and all 3 exercises that cause the Tetris effect have the same exact goal, and I'm going to teach you that singular goal to you next. First, here's how I explain the Tetris effect experience to my private one-on-one clients to get a sense of it, a feel for it, for how it works. Have you ever noticed the same day you've bought and drove a car or truck off a car sales lot that you begin to see other vehicles identical to yours, the same make and model? And it goes on for days. Wherever you drive, you see the same vehicle driving around, maybe a different color. Well, we both know that other drivers didn't decide to buy the same car the exact same day, right? And we both know that as you drove off the car lot, you didn't decide to all of a sudden be on the lookout for cars identical to yours, right? So what happened? Well, what happened is at the core to eliciting the Tetris effect. You see, for a short period of time, your conscious and subconscious mind spent a lot of mental thought and energy on the car you decided to buy. And as a result, your subconscious mind begins scanning and tracking others like it without you trying. And then it informs your conscious mind when it sees one without you ever asking. That's an example of how your subconscious mind goes to work for you. By spending concentrated, focused mental energy on your required needs causes the Tetris effect. And the 3 game-like exercises we applied to dating in a specific sequential order had us see far deeper than that. It's more like seeing under the hood into the engine of these identical cars and knowing exactly what gear they're in when they're doing 20 miles an hour or 30 or 45 miles an hour. The power of this 3-step exercise will blow your mind, and it's one of the greatest feelings you'll have in dating. It's incredibly empowering. Here's how the Tetris effect played out on some of my more interesting dates. I found a few women my old self would have dated, the old self before implementing these 3 exercises. But this time it was different. This time the whole relationship played out like a movie in my head while I was on the date. I could see exactly what my old self would have done after the date. My old self would have gone home, thought about her, played back the date in my head, maybe even envisioned a future with her, and I would have called her and gone out on more dates. I could see how my old self would have eventually started a relationship with this woman, and over time I'd become attached. I could see that when some of my required needs were not being fed, I would begin to compromise them and keep the relationship alive until it became too painful, and either she would end it or I would end it. I could see how my old self would have wasted 3 months, 6 months, a year, or more before coming to this awareness. All of this played out in my head like a movie script on some of these dates. And the new me, well, the new me wished her well in her quest to finding love at the end of our date. And I moved on to the next date. If you devote the time to discover your required needs, followed by training your brain to cause the Tetris effect, you will swear you can read the future with a woman your old self would have dated. You will feel as if you have a superpower, and you won't have to worry about your subconscious giving you mixed signals. You'll no longer fear misreading your gut. You'll no longer need to weigh out the pros and cons in a woman and try to talk yourself either into dating her or walking away. You'll no longer compromise, sell out on yourself, and let yourself down. You will no longer worry about making the wrong decisions about a woman. You'll never question if you have commitment issues because you will never date another woman again you can't commit to for life. Your subconscious will mine and ferret out those top core qualities you uniquely require for love, joy, and fulfillment. And your subconscious will be screaming the correct answer in your head. Here are some of the other benefits. This newfound clarity gives you certainty, and certainty gives you confidence. And confidence is very attractive to women. And you will feel very comfortable in your skin around women. You'll exude authentic confidence and feel in control of the whole experience on each date. I remember being so nervous on dates before I went through this process. I remember feeling so self-conscious about everything I said. And I focused a lot of my attention on me and how I came across to women. But all that vanished after the Tetris effect was in full swing. The roles had reversed. I now had absolute clarity about what I wanted, and my brain was patterned not to compromise on those qualities I required. I was dating with a purpose. I was a man on a mission. I was on the hunt for the woman of my dreams, and my brain simply focused on her, not me, her, to see if she made the cut. And it was natural, effortless. My confidence was real, not some pumped-up, exaggerated pretense. I was only there on the date to determine if she met my required needs, plain and simple. And the women I went out with sensed my natural confidence, as I often led the conversation effortlessly. Women reacted to me now, not the other way around. And in the past, I had always reacted to women and turned myself into a pretzel if I wanted them to like me, editing my conversation so I fit what they wanted. It was disgusting and inauthentic. But those days were gone now. I only wanted to find an authentic fit, so I could be my real self completely, and be adored and wanted and desired by the right woman. And I wanted to want her equally. So after going through this process, I found I didn't want to screw around wasting my time with someone who wasn't right for me, or me not right for her. I was on a mission, and there was 2 dates happening at the same time. One date was our conscious brains talking to one another like normal dates, and the other date was my subconscious going to work reading her body language, her voice inflections, her tone, her words, her laugh, her eye movements, her facial reactions, her hand gestures, head gestures, the way she sat, everything. It was as if my subconscious mind walked over to her mind, looked inside, and read her thoughts to determine if she had the qualities I required. And all this was happening without any work on my part. The Tetris effect was in full swing. I couldn't control it. It was effortless to me. Now this might seem like your brain is at work crunching and chewing on data, and it is, only it's happening behind the scenes without you trying. It's happening in the background as your subconscious is at work, and it's only supplying your conscious mind with the result, the final answer, no or maybe. So there was no work for my conscious mind. Your conscious mind will not have to chew on the data like we normally do on dates. Now your old self would be trying to hold a conversation while seeing how she's reacting to you, assessing if it's going well, what you should say, what you should edit, what she can handle, what she can't handle, assessing if you like what you're hearing, is she someone you're interested in, not interested in. It's a lot of work and very difficult to be relaxed and at ease and fully present with all that chatter going on in your conscious mind, right? But after I went through the process, the new self simply showed up to the date and relaxed into the conversation. I let my subconscious do all the work while I enjoyed myself chatting it up with her in a free-flow style with no editing of myself. My subconscious fed me the right questions on cue, and I just relaxed and stayed in the flow of the conversation. I found it was so much easier to be calm, fully present, fully relaxed, and 100% genuine. And when I felt relaxed, I could see her relax. The bottom line, you feel great and in control, and she feels safe and intrigued. So that's the experience of the Tetris effect. So what have we learned today? We've learned that clarity is the key to the kingdom. That the key for you is to first have absolute clarity about what you want, need, desire at your core, and then search and to find a woman who's already wired at her core to respond in a relationship with you that will naturally and effortlessly meet those required needs for you. Next, we learned that when you get exactly what you want, women get the exact man they want, because you share the same required needs. We also learned that we can't blame ourselves for any failed relationships in our late teens or early 20s, because chemistry has been in the driver's seat all along, leading us into relationships. And not until life experience caught up did we have a chance in hell to better direct our chemistry's agenda. We also learned that chemistry is important, but it's just one piece. Its role is the initial glue to a relationship. We've learned that switching seats, putting your life experience behind the wheel in the driver's seat, and bumping chemistry to the passenger seat as your co-pilot is what's required to begin taking charge of your dating life. We've learned that all of our past relationships have been haphazard, and we've had no choice because no one's ever taught us how to harness our life experience. And we've learned that the first step to stop repeating these haphazard relationships is by identifying and separating our baseline traits from our required needs and from our bonus wants, so that you no longer date women you meet who just have some of your required needs. And we've learned that if you don't do this part right, you can blow it. That if you miss any one of your required needs, it leaves a hole in your relationship that ultimately ends, or leaves you numb, or argumentative, or has you doing patchwork to keep it alive. And it ultimately leaves you unfulfilled and frustrated. We've learned that both baseline traits like honesty and trust and required needs such as sex are a given, a requirement, and the foundation for lasting love. We learned that our required needs are a particular set of qualities that separate this woman from most other women you come in contact with. And we now know that whatever bonus wants she brings along is just that, a bonus. And we've learned about the Tetris effect. We've learned that, like those who play the Tetris game for hours at a time, spending concentrated focused mental energy on your required needs causes the Tetris effect. And we've learned that there are exercises to greatly enhance the Tetris effect. We also learned that the Tetris effect assigns your subconscious the task of working for you while you're on dates or meeting women, letting you know if she's a fit or not, so you can relax and be fully present and enjoy yourself with her. Right? So we just covered a lot of good stuff here, and just laying out the process alone has taken over an hour. And obviously we can't cover the 200 plus positive and wonderful qualities in detail that a woman can possibly possess, and cover the value of each of those qualities to you inside any single hour, or lay out the series of 9 exercises and give you details of each of those so you can accurately identify and separate your required needs from your bonus wants and baseline traits. There's simply no way we can do all of that in one sitting because that's hours of time. And of course you need the time to do the homework. So none of this can be done in a single class. So let me ask you a question. Would you like me to help you implement each and every piece of this process, big and small, to ensure you get everything you need to get it done right, so you can find your ideal woman and not risk leaving any stone unturned or leaving it up to chance or missing any piece of the process by going it alone? Would you like that? If your answer is yes, I think you're going to love what I have to offer you today. As I mentioned earlier, every one of my private one-on-one clients who has followed my process has found their ideal partner. In other words, I currently have a 100% success rate. And one of the secrets to ensuring that success rate is that I only took on clients I believed were ready to find their ideal partner and had it in them to succeed. Frankly, I have no interest in working with men who are half-hearted or simply not ready to find their ideal woman in the near future. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm no longer offering my private one-on-one coaching as I want to deliver my process to more men. So I'm now offering a 4-week workshop called Foundation for Lasting Love to a small group of men who I believe are ready. Here's who this workshop is for. My workshop is for the man who's on a mission, determined and ready now to find and attract their ideal woman. This is for men who've been around long enough to know that it takes focused study and hard work to accomplish anything real and meaningful in life. This is not for the faint of heart. This is not for men who still experience any pain, anger, sadness, or betrayal from their ex. You must be at peace or at least feel neutral about your ex. As someone once said to me, if you still want to kiss or kill your ex, you're not over her, and you're not ready for my workshop. My workshop is for healed men, men who are ready today to find the woman of their dreams. My workshop is for men who are willing to carve out an average of 10 hours a week for homework, roughly 2 hours a day, plus up to 2 hours a week in class with me. And it requires that you set aside a single full day, either a Saturday or a Sunday, of the second weekend. Here's the structure of the workshop. Once a week for 4 weeks, you meet with me on the phone in a small group workshop, on a teleconference call. And in this workshop, I cover each step and each exercise in great detail, so you can uncover those required qualities you need in a woman. Delivering each step and each exercise in bite-sized pieces each week makes it easier for you to digest it and has you do complete work. That way nothing is rushed or overlooked. so you get it done the right way. The first hour of each workshop is all content, and the second hour I answer your questions. After each class, you have access to me by email for any and all questions that come up between classes. And in a pinch, if we need to talk by phone, one-on-one, we do just that. Between each weekly workshop, you will do specific assignments I give you to work on in-home alone. None of the homework has you going out on dates. Going out on dates is premature. Dating happens after you've gotten absolute clarity about what your required needs are first. That way you're not putting the cart before the horse. After our workshop ends, after week 4, you will then be fully ready to begin dating. If I believe you're a fit, here's what you're going to get from my 4-week workshop. Week 1. This week we take a look at all the available positive and wonderful qualities and traits a woman could possibly offer a man in a relationship. There are well over 200 of them. Having a full list of all the possible qualities a woman can offer you ensures that you will not overlook any of your required needs. During this week, you will be using exercises I assign you to evaluate the value of each likely quality and trait that resonates as important to you and how these can enhance your life with a woman. Some of the 200 plus qualities you will dismiss as unimportant right off the bat, so you're left with only those that resonate highly with you. You will begin to remember how each of these qualities has played a positive role in your life, and you will use the life experience to direct you to those qualities and traits that have had a positive impact in your relationship, marriage, or combined relationships. By the end of week 1, you will have those qualities and traits that pass the first hurdle, and you will bring those to week number 2. Week 2. This week you will select those qualities and traits that you cherish most. It takes 9 exercises and a single full day to separate your required needs from your bonus wants. This is not for the faint of heart. These 9 exercises applied to each quality and trait forces your brain to think differently. It will have you take a different cut at their merits to evaluate them to determine their real value to you. And each quality and trait has a different value and meaning for each man. So your set of required needs will be different from other men. These exercises ensures you don't let a required need slip past you. This way you can eliminate any chance of you picking the wrong woman. These exercises are eye-opening. What men think is required and what they actually need from a woman to bring out their best self and feed their soul has been shockingly different than what men expected. This happens every time. At best, some men can predict 1 or 2 required needs before they begin. But in the end, men report having aha moments throughout this full day of exercises. And when the lights go on, men experience certainty about what they genuinely require for lasting love. And armed with this new information about themselves, they can now visualize them finding lasting love, peace, and fulfillment with a woman. They now see the holes from their past relationships in a whole new light. Some men have told me it was these series of 9 exercises that had them completely forgive themselves and their exes. These men told me that they could finally bury the hatchet once and for all. And they felt free for the first time in a long time. And men told me after this series of exercises, they genuinely felt hopeful for the first time in a long time. The experience is liberating. You no longer need to understand the mysteries of a woman when you've uncovered the mysteries inside yourself, because you will see clearly for the first time what truly makes you tick. And when you know what makes you tick at your core, you are ready to find a woman who will give you those required needs. And as I mentioned before, when you get what you want, women get the man they want. By the end of week 2, you will have achieved absolute clarity. You will know every single one of your required needs. And that leads me to week 3. So week 3, this is where I show you how to take those required needs and plant them deep into your mind so your subconscious will seek them out for you. Here I will take you through 3 exercises in sequential order to cause the Tetris effect. And by the end of week 3, you will begin to find your mind assessing women in a whole new way in supermarkets or anytime you're out and about. And on dates after week 4, you will have unshakable confidence in dating. You will find women react to you, not you reacting to them. You will find yourself enjoying dating much more than before. Any anxiety you've felt on past dates will disappear. Dating becomes fun, like going on a treasure hunt for gold. It no longer feels like a job interview. It no longer feels like work. Any stress you may have experienced in the past just washes away. You'll find you're calm, fully present, and fully relaxed. And as a result, she will be the same. On dates, you are likely to find women, you would have dated before my workshop, and play out the whole relationship in your mind on that date, and feel relief to know that you've saved both of you from heartache. Your subconscious will never allow you to settle for second best. You'll never weigh out the pros and cons of a woman again. For women who are not a fit for you, your subconscious will see the gaps inside the first 10 minutes on nearly all of your first dates and inform you. Your subconscious will alert you if she's a maybe, and over the next several dates you will know if she's wired to meet all your required needs. And you will know the 5 different ways to protect yourself from being carried away by raw chemistry and how to integrate that into your dating. I covered one of the 5 earlier. So those are the results you'll get from week 3. A powerful, game-changing week. Week 4. This week is unique. This week I show you how to set her up to let her down easy. I give you a short but very effective script to use. You can say my script word for word, or you can use your own words to make the same point. Either way works. It's no biggie. I will teach you how to politely and respectfully reject women who are not a fit for you. 2 things happen when you convey the points from my short script before the date. 1, if you choose to meet women online and eventually speak by phone, you will hear her breathe a sigh of relief that she's off the hook with you before you even meet. 2, she is drawn closer to you instantly. I had women tell me on dates that no man has ever let them off the hook before the date, and how relieved they felt. And some women went on to admit that one statement even made them more curious and attracted to me. The great thing is, that wasn't even my intent. It just happened to be a nice added bonus. The short script politely sets her up to let her down easy and let you off the hook without you feeling bad, uncomfortable, or embarrassed at the end of the date, and she's left with no hurt feelings. Now once you find her, you will have the Bad News King talk with her to solidify any loose ends. This talk will give you greater confidence that she's a solid fit for you. It also sets your expectations and her expectations to ensure peaceful resolutions for very specific hot topics that are specific to her and you solely. It creates a framework for a workable future for each of you being together. It's unbelievable that no one else teaches this stuff either, but I will teach you that as well. I will also cover deals men and women virtually never make with one another before committing to an exclusive relationship, and should. Unlike the Bad News King talk, these deal conversations include 7 common topics encountered between all couples that contribute to the underpinning cause of most divorces today. We will flesh these 7 topics out to an extent you've never likely thought about yourself, or even thought possible. Some of these topics, men and women come into a relationship with assumed expectations and are shocked to discover you're not on the same page. Though these topics are tied to your matching core values, they are still separate and distinct from your required needs. As a result, these topics are extremely threatening to the relationship once you're committed. And the fear of the threat has men and women become overreactive and unintentionally defensive. And it's all a reaction to the threat. But when you handle them before you're committed to each other, the conversation doesn't carry the same weight. And it's way easier to have those talks and resolutions in those early stages before you commit. Plus, I will show you how to broach these topics to make her feel like you're the most amazing man on the planet. The very fact that you bring up these conversations immediately tells her you're committed to lasting love, and it gives her the assurances all women need to know, and that is, you're in. Men lacking commitment is the biggest fear women have about men. You will erase that fear and replace it with confidence. And I will show you how you can make deals that have both of your interests at heart so you both feel good about your solutions. In total, by the end of week 4, you will have absolute clarity about what your required needs are, and you can list them off in just seconds. You will know your baseline traits. You will know all your bonus wants. It will be all in front of you in black and white, no longer buried deep inside your mind, all mixed up, muddled, and unclear. Your conscious and subconscious mind will now know your required needs and baseline traits by heart. Equally as amazing, you will have engaged the Tetris effect. Your subconscious mind will be at work assessing every woman in a 30-foot radius, feeding you information without ever you asking for it. It's really cool. On dates or having simple conversations with women, your mind will tell you if she's a no or a maybe in a matter of minutes. Your confidence with women will be soaring because your mindset is on a mission to find your ideal woman. Your dates will be fun, you'll feel great, you'll feel relaxed and at ease, you'll feel in control of yourself, and your subconscious will be in control of the process. And as a result, your date will feel safe and at ease. You will know how to set up a date so you're at ease letting yourself off the hook at the end of each date that's a no for you. And because you have set it up properly, she will be okay and honor your no. The transition will be smooth and comfortable for you both. Once you've found her, you will have the Bad News King talk with her, a conversation that further solidifies your compatibility. It sets a framework for you both to solve future hot issues specific to you both well in advance. This is such a cool conversation. And finally, you will have learned the lessons I've learned over 10 years, conversations to have, the 7 deals to make with your new love before committing to her. She will love being with a man who makes deals that have her best interest at heart way before there's any chance for miscommunications and false expectations. For many women, this is a new experience they've never encountered in their past relationships. I will show you how to do this. By the end of week 4, you will walk away with all the tools integrated inside of you so your subconscious mind can identify and select the right woman when you find her. And as you're actively dating, this clarity will make your sorting and selecting process move infinitely faster than before, so you're likely to find her in record time as it did for me and as it did for my private clients. So here's my take. You're at a crossroads in your life. And on one path, you can simply invest about 10 hours a week for 4 weeks of your life up front so you can finally find and get what you want and deserve in a woman, while likely reducing arguments, disagreements, and drama that lead to divorce. On the second path, you can skip this 4-week investment of your time and risk losing the remaining 30 to 50 years of your life fighting with women who don't naturally give what matters most to you. And as a result, you can have more breakups, have fewer opportunities for connection with a woman. Only you know the pain you've been through in past relationships. You know the loss. You know the pain of failing, the fight to keep your dignity. And if you've been through a divorce, you know the feeling of future dreams being shattered. You know the emotional pain all too well, and you know the financial pain and burden it causes. So which path appeals to you? Which do you want? I hope at this point the answer is obvious. So let me ask you a question. By the end of week 4, if you can walk away with all the tools I spoke about already integrated inside of you so you don't even have to think about it, so you can pick an amazing woman who will bring out the joy and fulfillment you're looking for and give you the confidence that this relationship will be your last, what is that financially worth to you? What's it worth to you to have the joy you want to share with a woman? What's it worth to you to have peace in your home, peace between the two of you? How much is it worth to you to experience the fulfillment you want in a woman? How much is it worth to you to grow old with someone who loves you deeply? To me, it's the biggest investment a man can make in himself and to the woman he will have one day. How much is she worth to you? How much is it worth to you to find her? If I was going to work with you as a private client, you'd pay $5,000. Now, I don't know you, so I don't know if that's a lot of money for you or not. But for me and the private clients that I've taught, we can't put a price on it. To us, it's priceless. Knowing what I know about how to find the right woman is worth far more than the $45,000 Infinity that I drive. It's worth more than the dream house that I currently live in. To me, the biggest reasons to live are to have the people I love in my life. If I didn't have the closest friends that I have, if I didn't have Kirsty, if I didn't have my family, I'd be lonely. And frankly, my life would have less meaning. So getting it right. Finding and having someone I find joy with every day means everything. Having peace between us 95% of the time and feeling fulfilled is priceless. And those are the kind of men I want to work with. I want to work with men who share my value in having someone who brings out your best and feeds your soul, and have it be a joy to have someone special to share the rest of your life with. I think one of the worst experiences I could imagine for myself is growing old alone. When I'm on my deathbed, looking back over my life, I can say I got this part right. And I only got it right because this process led me to her. Anything else would have been a roll of the dice. It would have been haphazard. So I want to work with men who think like me. I want to support men who have, as one of their biggest desires, is to have a deep connection with a woman and have no regrets in the next woman they choose. So how much is it worth to you to find her? Is having her worth more to you than your car? Is it worth more than the measly $5,000 I'd charge you if I was still taking on private clients? Well, because I can handle more than one client at a time, I save you from having to pay that price by offering a smaller group rate. So instead of you paying $5,000, it's only 3 easy payments of $495, a total of $1,485. That's a $3,500 discount over what you'd pay as a private client. And if you choose to pay in full, then you only pay $12.95, an additional savings of nearly $200. Plus, as a special bonus, if you pay in full, I will add in the same access for you that I gave my private clients. In other words, after the 4-week workshop ends, you will continue to have email access to me for 8 additional weeks. And if you prefer talking to me by phone, I'll give you my cell number so you can call me personally. That way you're never alone. You have me on your side, ready to take your call, answer any questions or challenges you encounter on your search. So if you know you're ready now to find your ideal mate, and there's no question in your mind, and you know you're the type person to put in the work required to find her, and all you need are some assurances that my process is for real, that I'm for real, so you can't lose in any way, then I've got you covered. If you're accepted into my workshop and you decide at any point during the 4 weeks that you want out, just let me know and I'll refund everything. No questions asked. So the risk is 100% on me and not on you. That way you have peace of mind going into this, knowing that you're covered either way. Sound good? So here's how to apply to my workshop. If you meet the criteria I laid out earlier and you'd like to talk to me personally about potentially getting accepted into my workshop, then I'll happily set aside some time to talk to you. Here's how the process works. First, you need to fill out an application. It's simple and straightforward. I just need to get a better idea of who you are, your dating and relationship experiences, so I have a better idea of knowing where you're coming from. I also ask for a real person deposit of $100. Don't worry, I can care less about your $100. I'm just using it as a filter to keep out the tire kickers and the time vampires at bay. I'll give it back to you right after we hang up, unless I take you on as a client, and in that case I can apply it to your balance. Here's what happens after that. Once I have your real person deposit and your application, my assistant will send you a confirmation email and work with you to schedule a time for us to talk. Our call will be between 20 and 25 minutes. I will call you precisely at that time, so you'll need to be in a quiet space and ready for my call. As you'll see on my application page, my next workshop is right around the corner. I expect my calendar to get booked with calls quickly, so you'll want to act now. Once my workshop is booked, it's booked, and you'll go on the waiting list. So if it's time for you to find your ideal woman, click on the application button down below now, and I look forward to meeting you.